Greetings, family. Trust that you are creating the very best day ever. We welcome you to another episode of WholeSelf Leadership, brought to you by the Aina-Nia Learning Journey, Inc., where for over 2 decades, we have been guiding, informing, and inspiring individuals and institutions to lead and live the highest version of their vision. We ground all our ways of being in traditional wisdom systems that turn stress into balance, disconnections into trust, and leadership into sustainable change. Let's just take a breath. I needed to take that beautiful breath as we go into this conversation where we will be exploring the power of deconstructing success to redefine fulfillment for oneself. Deconstructing success to redefine fulfillment for yourself. And again, I'm very fortunate to have another friend and thought leader explore this conversation with me. So I don't want to wait any longer. I want to introduce my friend, my comrade, my colleague, my countryman, Kevin Ormsby, to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yes, sir. So listen, I do not take a minute away from who you are or who you have, how you have contributed and how the world sees you and how you have the things you've gained. So I want to read your bio. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
I
No
don't want to
problem.
just take it from memory because I don't want to miss anything. So bear with me as I read your bio.
Go
So
ahead.
Kevin A. Ormsby is a multidisciplinary artist whose work is centered in culturally responsive art practices, the poetics of space and placemaking and connecting communities. He is the executive director, let me back up, the executive artistic director of Cachet Dance. His artistic and scholarly inquiry is rooted in a continual navigation and critical interrogation of Caribbean and African diasporic dance traditions and cultural expression. Are you hearing me? His performance journey spans Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, where he has embodied roles in the works of esteemed choreographers. Kevin focuses on culturally responsive art, space, place making, which I want to talk about, and communities. As co director, curator of programming and engagement at Cultural Pluralism in Arts Movement Ontario, which we definitely have to interrogate, he delivers equity, diversity, and inclusivity programming and training in national and international arts organization and is a well-known advocate for arts funding at all government levels in Canada. His voice is heard. He makes the tables actually, and then he shows up at them. And if there is no table, he finds a table. But here is the thing: Kevin is also a professor at the faculty of Centennial College and has been a guest artist and educator at notable institutions such as Philip Sherlock Center for Creative Arts at the University of the West Indies. And if you don't know where that is, that's at Mona campus in Jamaica, University of Wisconsin, Northwestern University, and University of Texas. Remember, I said he's multifaceted. Kevin serves on several boards and is often called upon for his expertise. This genius that I'm about to have a conversation with today is a recipient of several awards across Canada and Jamaica, including Jamaica Diaspora Impact Award, Patrick Corner Award, Jamaica's 60th Independence Award, Joanna Metcalf Performing Arts Prizes finalist, Charmer Arts Fellowship, Cultural Leaders Fellow, Victor Martin Lynch Stoughton Award. And the list goes on, and I don't want to take up any more of our time, so I'm going to stop there. Kevin Ormsby, welcome, welcome, welcome.
You're making me blush. Am I by that? No,
That is,
man.
and baby, that's just a part of your bio.
it, it read nice.
Kevin, I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I'm excited just to be in conversation with you, honestly. And I want to start here. I want to start at the beginning. How did this genius that you are, and I say that with no explanation or excuses, just because that's who I've experienced, the thought leader that you are, but also what I find this person that is so full of heart and authentic, no matter where, no matter how, you see the same person all the time, every time. You know, if you're angry, we're seeing it. If you're happy, we're seeing it. If you're game, if you're silly, we're seeing it. How did that come to be? Where is this from? How did this begin, Kevin?
Wow. You're speaking, community comes in my bio. It comes in who I am. I think it began in community, and I think the first community is having amazing parents. Won't underscore the impact of my parents on my life. An
Mhm.
amazing family. My mother's from a big family. My father's from a big family, and though they lived in Kingston, they made sure we go back at St. Anna and St. Elizabeth every single summer. All five of us then, now four. And I think it has given me a sense of what community is, what a family is, but also a good sense of what not culture, but only the importance of the person and the individual is. And I stand on it every single day because I have a lineage of grandparents who were entrepreneurs, who had land. When you go Rich Pen in St. Elizabeth, everybody at Rich Pen is a Lewis, and you know some of them related to you. And so even the idea of going on land and being on land and running up and down with tons of cousin who still to this day, you can own and call your own and are always also looking out for you. It has made me who I am. And there are many other communities along the way. You know, the artistic community in Jamaica, for which I started when I was 3. You know, I was at the feet of Miss Lou. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
so I was a ring ding kid. I from that very same moment at 3 years old was nurtured in things that I never knew, would have brought me to this particular space and existence in my life right now.
Wow. And for Kevin, for the rest of the world who don't know who the Honorable Miss Lou is, and Ring Ding, and I
Yeah.
can't even, at 3, your parents allowed you to go to Ring Ding. So tell us about that piece of it that's at such an early age.
Oh, Miss Lou. Miss Lou's iconic. Miss Lou's the reason why patois is the way it is in Jamaica. Miss Lou's part of the reason why the culture of Jamaica is the way it is right now. So even when I look at this idea around, it's about decolonizing success, right? It's also about or deconstructing success. It's like the hill and gully ride conversation they're having in Jamaica right now about, how dancehall is using the music and using it in a very lewd way, and but it's coming from a tradition that Miss Lou always brought forward in singing
Mhm.
Melancholy Ride in her programming and in her
Hill
performances.
Hilangoli ride, oh, Hilangoli,
Ilangoli, right?
Hilangoli ride, oh,
Ilangoli,
I'm in
eh.
the bend down low, so.
Ilangoli. I may say, eh. Ilang, yeah, you know. But again, the culture of Jamaica has made me who I am.
Yeah, yeah. And so the other piece that I know about you is your arts, and I say arts because there's so much that you do, and you bring the science into it. That is what I've come to know about you. You bring the science into it. You bring the culture into it. You
Mhm.
bring our ancestors into it. So I hear you. I understand what that means because I was one of those children who used to go to the country. Holiday coming, you're gone to the country, right? Which is why I still love the land so much. And so, but our parents, my parents certainly didn't talk about ancestors the way we talk about it today. but your work, your life is deeply grounded in ancestral ways. How, how do
Yeah,
you?
I think that's part of the deconstruction. I think
Mm,
at some point I grew up very much Methodist. And the moment I realized a West African spirituality and a way of a being that it was about ancestral work, but I was also about spiritual work, from the Black African lineage, was the moment I realized that in the Caribbean, and that's part of the deconstructing that even I have to go through, is for us to think differently about the practices that we sometimes turn our nose up on.
mm,
Right. The revival, the Maya culture, the Kumina, the things that actually are very much a part of a country that where 90% of the population are Black people. But we want to go in one church, go sit down and go so and have a different sense of piety about who we are as human beings without connecting it back to that spiritual space, that ancestral space. And I think
mm,
that's part of the colonial project, right? And I now embrace West African mythologies and beings and ways of thinking and deities way more than I did before because it grounds me and it tells a story in who we are as a people.
mhm,
That is integral to my success. When you walk up and if you're new to my house, please pour rum at my altar.
mm,
Obia, it's actually giving that tribute to the ancestors. It's giving us tribute to the very same persons I speak about as family members, grandmothers, grandparents who are no longer here, but are present in my being and present in my house. And so dopey are not always bad thing. Dopey are good dopey because you want the ancestors to follow you through and push you.
mhm, mhm. So we don't need to be afraid of it.
No,
Nothing to fear. Y
nothing at
uh,
all.
so you also in all of that, in your spiritual practices, in your cultural practices, what I know about you, Kevin, which is why I wanted to have this conversation, is that you bring all of that into your politics. You bring it into your policies,
Yes,
because there's politics and then there's policies. You bring
yes,
it into policies, you bring it into your advocacy, you bring it into your classrooms.
yep,
And so, how and I hear you say it grounds you, but we are often others define us, right? And so, one of the things I know I had to work through in my own journey is the disregard of my intelligence because of my practices.
yes,
And so, how have you, or have you had to navigate, or how do you work with the dichotomy of that, and the definition of what then success is?
yes, yes. And I think it's interesting that you should bring it up in terms of the dichotomy of it, because I think for many years I existed in the dichotomy of it, and I apologized. Um, so we do that a lot as Black people or as people from the Caribbean, right? Especially in North American spaces and Canadian spaces, we shapeshift.
Mm,
Normally shapeshift in a way that actually is comfortable to us. We never normally shapeshift in a way that actually grounds us in what we can come out of our mouths and come out of our ideas and our bodies and our head. And so part of the success that I had to think about shifting and changing was how do I, as Kevin A. Ormsby, Kevin Anthony Ormsby from Jamaica, who come to Canada at 15, with a rich history and a rich understanding of who I am as a person before coming, walk into space like that?
mhm,
Understanding the ways in which I would always associate my success into parallel realities with normally what white success look like.
mhm,
Not realizing that I have success in my genome, in my body print, in my memories, that is also equally important and actually is more viable when I walk into spaces to have conversations about community or to have
mhm,
about dance. Like for many years, oh, dancers, they're not smart. And we do it even in the Caribbean space.
mhm,
So even when going to university and deciding that I was curious about journalism and I was going to do a communications and a political science degree, I knew what I was doing because I
mm,
put myself for the success around what it meant to be an artist who would be able to communicate their work effectively, research their work, but also be in spaces where and I'd have double focus in political science, in international relations and comparative politics. Because I was positioning what I wanted to do, that I still do now, the arts, in a space where I would be able to talk about it differently,
Mm-hmm.
based not only on just Eurocentric knowledge systems, but also based on West African or African Black Caribbean diasporic based systems, which are
Mm-hmm.
often understood as successful things. But
Mm-hmm.
I then go into place and say, look here, when the first university is a Quranic university in the entire world, in Mali, in Timbuktu, in Africa, there's no way you can tell me that intellectual thought begins in Greece.
Uh, so Kevin, my grandmother would say, "You're an idiot in a boy. You're an idiot. You're an idiot in a boy." Because we have to, and this is part of what I often try to share with young people, right? We do not have to undo ourselves and change ourselves. What we have to do is to build ourselves within the system that exists and keep who we are in that. So I really am hoping that young people hear this, what you've just said, right?
Mhm.
You didn't say, I'm not going to university and I'm just going to do dance even, right? What you said, which was so strategic, is I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it so that I can shift the narrative,
Yes. And the
right?
arts is at the center of it, right?
Yeah.
So everything I do, those narratives are the center of it. My story is equally important. And that's something I also learned from an amazing artist from Trinidad in some research I did through the Chalmers Fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was like, what is the point?
Hmm.
He's, all my work begins with this idea of the point, you know, and you see it in his work, you see points. And so from that point, you begin to draw. From that point, you begin to think. From that point, you begin to understand who you are. So what is the point that I would offer young people is to really understand who you are,
Ah,
because everything else is already scaffolded and builded upon that. And I think that's part of the challenge that young persons are having, even older persons working in different
yep.
environments. They
Yes.
don't understand totally the point.
I
So
love
you
that.
will always go into a system, you will always go into work, and you will just do the thing that you do. But that's not necessarily the point. The point is, how does your work contribute to a larger organization or to a larger thing? And the moment you can begin to understand that is the moment you can then begin to advocate and understand your importance within that particular role. And then you can begin to say, no, and then I'm underpaid.
Yeah.
Because without these particular point systems and without these particular things, I this organization would not exist in these particular ways. And that is also then redefining what success can look like. Because you can choose to stay where you are in that, or you can begin to advocate for yourself where you are in that, knowing that there is other successes that is possible from that particular understanding.
That's the defining of success for oneself. That's it right there, Kevin. Because
Yeah.
when you started to talk about the point, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's something I talk about a lot. The point, the point. And the point is the purpose. The
Yeah.
point is your path. The point is, period, why you're here. And you know me, and my work is all about if I truly believe that if every single one of us live the purpose that we came here for, we would have a better world. We would not have a competitive world. We would have a collaborative world. We would not have insanity as
Yes.
it's and clinically. We would have very healthy people walking around.
Yeah.
And because this, one of my elders talks about insanity in the West, where folks are losing their mind, depressions, all of those things, coming from a place of one not knowing one's identity and one's purpose. And when we don't know our purpose, one, to know it, so to identify it, two, for the community to acknowledge it, which is why we do naming ceremonies,
Yes.
and for others around us to celebrate and promote it. When that doesn't happen, one is then pushing themselves against another definition of themselves. And that creates stress, that
Mm-hmm.
creates this constraint,
Mm-hmm.
and that creates unwellness, mental unwellness.
Yes.
Right there, Kevin.
Psychological well-being. Yes. Yep.
So you knew your purpose. It feels to me like you knew your purpose at 3. You knew the point.
I did. And I'm the last of 5 children. I think also there is a 8-year space between my sister and I. So I was able to be both have 4 other siblings, but also be what they would laugh now and say, I act like a only child.
Aha,
But
because 8 years is a span.
a big span, but I automatically knew what it meant to be the 5th child
Huh.
because I had different relationships with every single one of them and saw the relationship with also my parents.
Uh-huh.
And so I was able to say things that they were not able to say
Mhm.
effectively for themselves, even though they're all very successful. But also because of how far I am, I was able to actually go on those particular paths, knowing that by then my parents would be like, "You've clearly articulated it. All right, go on, go do it. You've
Well,
explained to me why."
so early
That's
on,
very,
you
very,
you also it seemed to me that you're also celebrated for articulating, and you're an absolutely great teacher. You're a communicator.
yeah.
So early on in
Very
Jamaica, in this
early
little
on,
country.
and my parents they would always ask you, "You know what you do?" And you have to sit there and explain to them what you do. And say, was there anything that was not right in that? Yeah, and you have to sit there, even from every one of us. They would go through this idea of like digging deeper with thought and having you understand the implications and the successes of your personhood,
Ah.
so that way you knew that your actions had a particular way of manifesting itself, and good or bad, you then had to
Yeah.
rationalize what good or quote unquote good or bad.
But they were also doing that critical thinking. They were teaching you critical
Yep, yep.
What I just want to vow to your parents, truly. Um,
Hyacinth Van Ormsby.
Amazing parents.
Yes.
Amazing parents. And then so you were like the last lick because
Lastly,
you were
mm,
you were like the
mm,
last lick.
Murder Wash Belly.
Wash belly. And you
Murder
all
Wa-
need to go Google that. We're not going to explain it to you.
No,
We're not going to explain it to you.
that's part
Last
of the learning.
That's part of the learning. Lastly, I laugh at this because you had come and do some work with a learning journey that I was taking folks on, and you went right into the patois. You went right into the patois as you were teaching them. And my colonial brain came on because every day I have to.
Yes,
It's a practice, right?
yes,
And I was
yes,
like, Kevin, they don't they don't know what you're saying. And he said, they'll figure it out. This is my language. And I thought, in that moment, you taught me something. In that moment, you taught me something. And it's something I've been doing for years. Like I would do public speaking and I would go into my patois, but then I would also interpret it. And in that moment, you helped me to affirm that I don't need to interpret.
yes,
Had a partner that wasn't Jamaican. And so I would say that. I would say to them, I'd speak, and they would say, what do you mean? And I'd say, feel it. Feel the language. Feel what I'm saying. Right?
yes.
Easy. So for me, that's a part of how you decolonize your
Yep.
very your very experience. So
Yep.
talk to me about you have this thing that is a science that I think is so powerful and magnificent that you created and you share it right across the world. It's part of your work called cachet dance and the cachet tech. Did I say
Mm-hmm.
that right?
I said Dantec, but yeah, you're right.
Cachet dance tech.
Yeah,
No, it's important, It's important that we say it. We say the right
yeah.
cachet. Talk to us, share with us how this came to be, because it feels like it was dropped into your consciousness.
It was. It was. So even 2 things. I remember being at the Canada Council for a convening, and an indigenous person did not speak at all in French or English, and they spoke their they're from Nunavut. They spoke their indigenous language the entire way through. And I remember the moment when the interpreters were very frustrated. Oh, why can you not speak English or French? I can't work. I can't translate. And at the end of his very slow, tempered response, he said, I'm mindful that I'm way, way stronger in who I am as a person if I speak and communicate in my language. And the fact is, I was trying to make a point as well. And the point was, we live in a country that's supposed to be indigenous, but we recognize two official languages, neither of which actually is my first language. And a man without his language is nothing at all.
Oh. Woo.
And I had that groundation as well, because I was like, oh, actually, English is my language,
Yeah.
not mine. What next then is the language that I can actually, that grounds me in who I am, if it's not patois? And the honoring of even patois as a language system that actually looks at redefining what language is from a colonial experience, with both the Twi components, with the Spanish components, with the English components, and the different the bastardization of dialects that is coming from English is a bastardized language. Let's have that comment.
Mm-hmm.
That makes up patois.
Mm.
I realized that as one of my points of going, how do I create a language, a physical language that has the complexity of the migration of bodies across the Atlantic, that
Mm-hmm.
arrives in a Caribbean space, that is making sense of itself, that is always recapturing back to what its Africanness is, that is now being impacted by Eurocentric values and ideas, that is also influenced by, again, the West, North America. And so Cache Dantec emerged as a curiosity out of that.
Wow.
Knowing when also a dear colleague of mine, Christopher Walker, said, go back to the culture. And I was then dancing in the States, and I was how dare you? I'm dancing with Godfagan dance. Do you not? Godfagan dance, of course, for context, for those cultural contexts, is also Jamaican, but is an American icon in modern dance and has his own company, choreographed for The Lion King. So also has a visibility international. And that was when I realized that if I was going to be working in the Canadian system, I had to create a system of training for people that would also work in many aspects of things. So
Mm.
whether that's community engaged work, whether that's my wellness and awareness work, like I did with your organization, there is this thing that at the base of it is a philosophy of understanding and a philosophy of how the body arrives in space in whatever cultural practice that you exist in to
Mm.
actually particular work. And so I
Wow.
call it also the scaffolding of the body, right? The
Mm.
fortification systems that I know are coming from Africa that makes us the most resilient of all the races in the world, given our discrimination and injustices. What exactly did we have to do as people to survive that?
Mm.
And so there's many things to Kesha dance that is about not just the physical presence of being in space, but also the psychological and philosophical, and how that needs to also be at work at the same time as the physical. And it's I'm now preparing to do another fellowship application to begin the second phase of that work. Because the idea is that there's also this idea of Sankofa principles in it, that it must go back. It must question where it is now, understand the history of the past, and then arrive as a future thing for people. So it's Afrofuturistic in also its understanding of the world.
I mean, you see why I call you genius? That's why I call you genius. And then because as you were talking, I was thinking it feels like it's constantly unfolding. It's not this thing, and it's interesting that you're going like this, like a
Yeah.
going back,
Hmm.
right? It's a going back because it's not this one thing that was created that stays stagnant, and therefore then you put it in an institution and it and you're it's it, and it's being taught. No, it's constantly unfolding, and you're taking it to this next level and this next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's in that unfolding, it's also questioning how, as human beings, we've gotten um, disconnected from nature, that's always unraveling, unfolding, and making sense of itself. But how, for us, the things we acquire, the homes and the car, the things we acquire, the job, the successes, become fixed things, and they should never ever be fixed, because the moment they become fixed is the moment we stop learning, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the moment we stop growing. So
Yes.
if our entire existence is to learn and grow and contribute, then it has to be a continuous system of learning. It has to be a continuous system of actually engaging and experiencing, because this is where life exists and this is where life lives. And I think even in deconstructing it as a success mechanism for me is realizing that I'm one of, as a Black creator in the country, I'm one of two, three that has they're not training methodologies in this country that is rooted in African diasporic experiences. And so I'm one
Mm-hmm.
of three working within that particular way. So in the
Mm-hmm.
university system, I'm like, you're still doing dance techniques that doesn't actually have a Canadian backbone in them. That doesn't have a way of working that was created in this particular country, informed by other cultural practices.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe diasporic in Canada and quote unquote multicultural, then it must understand itself within that particular system as well. And Jamaican culture helped to build this here.
Yes. 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 And we could.
Nova
That's
Scotia, in a Toronto, in a Edmonton, out west.
perfect. Everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere, right? We have the stories. We have the stories. Our people came, our people built. I am always surprised that that folks are still surprised that we, as Black people, as people of African descent, have been on this land, the stolen land, now called Canada,
Yes.
for over 400 years.
Yeah.
And so I find what you're doing not only interesting and intriguing, Kevin, I find it also necessary, because what you're doing is ensuring that representation is present. And before we started the show, I was talking about why I did something I did yesterday purely for representation, that we are never ever forgotten, because it's very easy to erase the African presence and the African history and the African contribution to this country that we live in, or to North America in general. And so when I think about you and I hear your name often, it's interesting, because you're like a flower. That's what I call myself anyway, and I'm going to call you that. You're like this flower that has many petals, and but the flower, if you look inside there is the point that you talked about earlier. And so in many spaces that I hear your name called, it's from a policy place. And so you're very, very much a policy maker, a policy advocate in arts, but not just arts. And I don't say not just arts to minimize it, but it's it's more than the arts, let's say. You are constantly policy making for to ensure that there is human rights. I see it. That's how I see your
Yeah.
work. That
Yeah.
there is human rights. That's all parts of everything is being considered. And so I know that's your discipline, political science, but you've become really good at it.
Thank
And
you.
I had a book here that was written by yourself and another person. I think it was Charles.
Oh,
Um,
change is gonna come. That,
Pluralism. It's about pluralism.
that change is gonna come. Pluralism in Canada.
Yeah, I have it. I'm in my sacred office space, so it must be in my other in my on my other bookshelf. And
Yeah.
I use that when it's somewhere there, right? But I used when we were when I was responsible for addressing anti-Black racism in the municipality. I would refer to that book. And I remember giving folks copies of that book because it was more than just about the arts. So
Yes,
I want
yes.
folks to, one, know about that book, and two, talk a little bit about that because it's a hefty book.
It's true. And and very nuanced. I think what happens a lot is, and I think we, as unfortunate as Black people, we suffer from this a lot. We go into systems and we work for systems, and if we're okay, it means that the entire sector is okay. It means that we are okay. We have, again, we have the things, right? We have the things or the titles, but when you look about whom else is achieving these particular things, that's my passion. So again, the idea of the community must be there with me. And at so many spaces I walk into, and sometimes I'm the only Black person having that conversation. And so
Mhm.
I want to make sure that there's a line, a through line to that conversation, because my successes cannot be my own. I know some of my don't giant church. They can tell you right now. The second nomination I received for the Metcalf Foundation for the Provincial Arts Prize. Um, the first one in say talk about yourself. I said I cannot talk about myself without talking about some people who have actually contributed to who I know as myself.
Mhm.
Persons who did not arrive in the same space. That's the Tamla Matthews who tapped me on my shoulder when I first come to Canada and say, "Oh, me is here dancer. I come from Jamaica." And da, da, da. That's Dwayne Morgan who were instrumental in forming Up From the Roots, and me doing the newsletter and doing the things that I'm doing now, right? That's the Patrick Parsons, and that's the people who never got the recognition because there's a generation before me who never even arrived with some of these awards and titles and opportunity. And I remember saying that to them.
Mhm.
That, when I do that work now, I'm like, but yeah, that's my mother's and family's contribution to the GDP of Ontario that you are not dispensing equitably.
Yeah.
That's the 1% that I lobby for with Parliament, when we go to Ottawa and we do the work to fund the Canada Council. But then you have to represent what Black or diverse Canadian arts expression is, because that's the 1%. It's my and me and you tax money. So I'm going to pay if you to come further marginalize me.
Yeah.
That don't make no sense.
That's happening.
So what are the cultural policies? What are the equitable policies? What are the inclusive frameworks and policies that you need to put in place to make sure that everyone in our communities are also engaging in the arts? And that's the politics in it, right?
Yes.
That's the responsibility. And for me, I say I learned social responsibility very early.
Mhm.
I learned it because that's how I'm here. I can't forget that in the work that I do. I can't now be successful and not worry and concern about how other artists and other people are feeling successful, or how a community wants to see themselves expressed in a different way than
Mhm.
what you for it to be. When
Mhm.
you feel good about the way the expression arrived with them, then I feel successful.
Yeah.
Then I feel like I've made a mark, and so I advocate, I lobby, that's who I am. You know what I'm saying? I hold that as success as well, because I see that as a social responsibility that I have to pass forward and on.
All that you're talking about are African traditional wisdom systems. All that you're
Yep,
talking about are philosophies, when
yep,
I teach often, and I because the institutions, the colonial institutions, are usually, they don't know how to take me. And when I say I am teaching leadership from a decolonized place, I'm teaching leadership through African centered knowledge system. And I am not saying that is the only knowledge system that is used, but that is where I come from. So I teach from who I am, and because I know the philosophies of my people are philosophies that will create sustainable outcomes and impacts. I know that because all that you've just talked about are on my list that I give to folks, right? When we
yes,
talk about, when we say anything near Ubuntu or the many different ways that we talk about Ubuntu, depending on where you're from across the regions,
Return.
it's said differently, but it's the same thing.
Yep.
We're talking about what you just said, which is your success is my success. When one fail, everybody fails. That is not new. That is not some Western philosophy. Those are our philosophy. The philosophy about accountability. You just talked about social accountability. That is why when our children are born, we identify why they're here, and they have a responsibility to the community, to the whole.
Yep.
All of those things you're talking about are rooted in African-centered knowledge systems, which can save this world.
Yep. And also save black children. My thing is in those African centered ideologies, we can't forget that Africa is the center of the world. We can't forget that everybody come out to Africa.
Yeah.
Somewhere
First,
along the way, we've lose that lineage of connection.
yeah,
And so the thing is, once a person who understands that, and I'm talking about now students, educate, once you understand that
yeah,
and you hold on to that, you have to be successful in whatever you do because you realize your responsibility within this world, but within a system of things that might be your family or your community. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of the erosion of the capacity of Black students and Black children.
yeah,
And they're not arriving at the potential success that they can achieve because it's going counter to the ways in which they're brought up, to the ways of knowledge systems that is in their blood and in their being. And they're being fed this over and over and over. And I would say in a contemporary
yeah,
society
yeah.
where they're even being disrespectful to the very same persons they should be calling parents, family
Yes,
members,
yes, yes,
without recourse. And that's because you're losing that sense of that African centered, Caribbean centered. Pull up the picnic.
hey,
Make your other white counterparts going to do that. When they arrive at success is
yes,
because of family connections.
yes,
We don't have those. Pull up the child and say, understand the things that exist within your systems of learning and understanding. And it has to be based in, again, a Caribbean and African based centered understanding.
yeah, yeah. But if we have thrown that out.
Gone.
We've completely thrown that out so that we can assimilate, so that we can be accepted. Kevin, I can't tell you how many people I speak with that are so-called successful. And I ask them a simple question that we started this conversation with. We talk about the point. So, what is your purpose? Why are you here at this time? Why? Why you at this time? What is this? Why are you doing what you're doing? Most of it is default. They cannot answer that question. And then they say, but Aina-Nia, if I do what I really want to do, how will I pay my bills? How will I maintain this? So then we have to go into the conversation about then how are you defining success? And who defined the success for you?
You. Yep. Yep.
So you're 50 years old.
Mhm.
Big, big, big ting, 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 right? Being defined by somebody else's definition of what success is. So I call that a failure.
Mhm. Mhm. You know, I was gonna write it down. I didn't write it down. I'll remember. Um, Professor Rex Netherford has a book called "Inward Stretch, Outward Reach,"
Mm,
and the premise is that you must go further in first before you can have the outward reach. The challenge is that when we're thinking about success, sometimes we think about the outward reach, and so the recognition is external, but not the inward stretch.
yeah,
And for me, one of the ways I've been thinking and even asking dancers and students as well and also redefining the work that I do with the company with Cashier Dance is when I'm writing particular grants, I, s- I success for Cashier Dance looks like this.
Hmm.
When I'm asking in many of my consultations, said, well, what does success look like? So
Hmm.
beyond wanting to get all your, your inclusive frameworks, what does that look like for you?
Yeah.
So let's start there. What does success look like?
Hmm.
Where are you now along this path to the success that you talk about? What is missing or may need to be, I'm missing, what needs to be added
Yeah.
to that,
Shifted even.
right? What needs to be shifted? So missing again suggests that a lack of, or
Yes.
it's, and sometimes we, in this conversation around success, we are exactly where we are in this moment in time because that is destined.
Yes.
It will not be where we're going to be tomorrow.
Yes.
And that for today is my success. For
We,
tomorrow, it's different.
you and I talking right now, just
Mhm.
in this moment, just being present. Many years ago, I remember early in my journey, I was in upstate New York, way, way up in the mountain, up in the hill, doing doing what I do now, but being taught. And I was walking, it's big property, and I'm walking, and this man is walking beside me, and we started to chat, and I said, "So, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Walking with you." I'm like, "No, no, 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 but what are you doing? What are you?" It's like,
Yeah.
"Walking with your child." And it took me like three, "What are you doing?" to get what he was saying. And that is this being present,
Yep.
being present in this moment and understand you said something about a minute ago and understanding that every single thing has its purpose. And if we just sit with that, just sit with that and understand. And so you and I love plants, right? May stop counting them now. And I listen all over the place. Wow, what is that one?
This is an orchid.
Oh, that's
Um,
oh, that's a little different, Kevin.
yes, this is it's a long name. Um, Zygophyllum. It's
Psychophysics.
scented.
Shape's
Um,
different.
yeah, but I know where you're going because it's the idea of the fertilizing, the
Yes.
waiting, the cutting back, the pruning, the responding, being responsive to.
Yeah.
I often say to people, I understand who I am and everyone around me, and sometimes my success from the plants that I
Yeah.
nurture.
They're such teachers.
They're teachers, right? And then we tell you success look like this to me. You see, give me too much water, me no dead.
Mm-mm.
You make them dry them leaf custer. Them said, okay, right? You're communicating. And I think sometimes we miss the cues and we often look externally. Again, that kind of like inward stretch, outward reach, right? We often go for the reach and say somebody else's successes at this particular period of point in their life must be the same for me
Yes.
without understanding that, yeah, look here, you wake up this morning, that's success. You did, you like there are many ways to chart your success
Yes.
that could make you understand now what needs to be added to that
Mhm.
in a different way.
And the
You know what
shift and the change, right? You gave me a plant, beautiful plant. About a year I had that plant sitting. Moved, ready now. I replanted it, right? Took it out.
Yeah.
You said, need a bigger pot, need a bigger pot. Put in the bigger pot. And today I was looking at it on my deck. I'm looking at it. I'm like, what happened to you? Because I'm watching, different leaves and it's having different color. But then I'm seeing new leaves coming out. And I'm like, okay. So there's a regeneration happening here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I don't need to do anything with you. You're okay. So the plant and I have these conversations, but they are such. That's when I got it, Kevin. It was nature. When I really understood I am a part of nature. nature at different shift, change, grow, different lives. Same thing. Look, I've never seen that orchid. I don't know that orchid.
Yeah,
It's called
because you
an
would know.
orchid from the family. That's the one I know well.
Yeah.
From look different. So we all look different. So every time people do this EDI diversity, I'm like, do you even understand what that means? Diversity? Are you ready to hold that for real? Because here is this plant that I call orchid that looks a different way. Does that mean that is not efficient? Does that mean that is not enough? You know,
Yes.
unpack a lot of this.
Yeah, and you know, and this idea, given the plants, and again, this idea of success, what this one as a phalaenopsis need is not what the zygophyllum needs, because the zygophyllum also is a grass leaf, which means it desires way more moisture and water, whereas
Mm,
phalaenopsis does not. So if you even think about this arc of success, right, is like, what do you need in in this understanding of success right now?
yeah.
How is it watered differently? Because you can water many aspects of it. You can then let some be parts of it be dry, right? It's not going to be the same. The success story is also very diverse. It can't be the same for everybody. What is your success story? What is your curiosities about where you are now in what you consider success to be in your life?
Mhm.
And those are hard internal questions.
Yes. That we miss because there is so much external.
External. Yeah.
Everything is, and we live in a world, it's the likes, right? We live in a world that is consumed by the likes and what it looks like outside and what it ought to be. And so, and what happens too is there's so much noise that folks can't even hear themselves, hear their spirit. And so
Mhm.
before we close, I really want to ask you, what would you tell young Kevin who
Mhm.
is searching, looking, defining? And when I say young Kevin, I'm not even talking about age, because there are 80-year-olds that are of younger minds, right? And younger experiences and expressions. But what would you tell them about how you define? And we've talked a lot about it, but I kind of just want to capture it for somebody who just joined us or somebody who listened to us, but Lord, I'm not really sure we understand what I say. How would you, how would you, what would you say?
You are where you are, and you're experiencing what you're experiencing because that's where you need to be, and that's
Mm,
destined for you. That you can compare yourself to others all you like. It is still not going to be good enough for what you possibly desire. As Mahuli Chai would say, stand in the truth of who you are
yeah.
and realize, I'm adding, that whatever it is good enough for now.
Mm,
You know, I'm an overachiever, sometimes overworker. Um, and I'm now realizing none of that actually serves me
mm,
as a person, but I'm very much strategic in what I do and how I do it.
yeah.
And I think the presence piece is so important. I think for the success that I have gained thus far, and for those who are thinking about success, think about your presence. Think about actually what you can do and how you do it. And I tell myself that every single day. How do you do it? What do you do now? Do you need to do that? Is that what's most important? Because sometimes, again, if we look at it always externally as this is what's important to do right now, we're missing what actually is important to do for the future.
Mm,
Self for those things. And some of it is actually not doing jack right now. Is to just stop, slow it down, so you can actually see the signs that are coming in from other spaces. That allows you to what I call that allows you to shift perspective.
mm,
That is
mm,
thing in my practice called shifting perspective. which is like you see it from here. But what happened if you look at it from the side?
Mm-hmm.
What happened if you turn back and look at it? What happened when you see tomorrow? Right? Because you have to shift your perspective on something to understand and to grow and to work and to actually continue to think of yourself as a successful being. So yeah, I could go on that. That's where I'm at 50. So I can go on that forever. But
Okay.
that's where I would leave it. It's again going back to we talk about the philosophical approaches. Though this one is ableist, it's a part of the philosophy of the company. Tanapayamala,
Mm-hmm.
right? Though it says stand on the feet you have, some people don't have feet, but it means in Jamaica when you're falling, it's Tanapayamala.
Payamala.
Be
Mm-hmm.
certain to stand and to
And
understand,
stand.
engage with your
Yes.
soul of who you are.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
them not say that it should be like anybody else. I must say, no. We are bring to the conversation. Who you? These words that we use in even the language, right? Who you? Who are you?
Yeah.
When you go in your house at night time, when you go at work, when you wake up in the morning and you get there, who are you?
Yeah.
Because if that is not what you bring to every single table, every single room, then your success might not be actually what you think it is.
I think we're going to name this Payamala.
Tano Payamala.
Payamala. Child, Payamala.
Deconstructing
I
success.
mean,
No,
what's,
Payamala.
what's next for you and how? And I want you to leave with us. Should you care, I don't know that you're open or have capacity or what you do. Tell the people what you do and what's next and how we can find you.
Yeah, what's next for me? For my company, what's next should have been a production in June. It's been postponed until the fall or winter. That's called Awiting, and we is the West Indies. So West Indies thing, but Awiting, which is a combination of looking at Caribbean jazz as a unique structure,
Mm,
separate from American jazz. It's using again movement vocabulary from the Caribbean and traditional tambourine music from Trinidad and Tobago. Um, I think there's also something about Caribbean unity and oneness and liberty in the ways we should think about the archipelago of the Caribbean islands that's being washed by the sea, that has washed by the same
mm,
experiences. Really
mm.
passionate about that. Um, and then what's next for me is that,
That's
phase two.
October. I don't
That's
want to
going
move.
to
Yeah,
fall.
that's in the fall. So you're not open. Tickets are not being sold yet.
Things are not being sold yet because we're
Okay.
finalizing, shifting it to the fall.
Okay.
And then for me personally, it's going away to do some research, and again, continuing the conversation around Kashadantek and layering it with other Caribbean sort of ideologies and mythologies and ways of being. Things that we know exist through the Caribbean space, pure Grenard and Pichipachi and Garifuna sensibilities and these beautiful things that exist in the Caribbean archipelago as well. Follow me. My Instagram and Facebook and everything is Kevin A. Ormsby. And the company is Kasha Kashe Dance One on Twitter and Instagram and Kasha Dance on Facebook. And we have many things like this Wednesday, hosting actually a workshop on Landship, which is one of the main cultural dance forms coming out of Barbados, with
Mm,
Dr. John Hunt, who is here to deliver that particular workshop tomorrow evening at 6 p.m.
I saw.
And excited for that as well, because I think it's also the connection of different dance forms and genre in his own research around like even performance of masculinity through carnival and also through landship. I'm excited to be in his space again. He's been very instrumental in my own upbringing and some of the work at the National Cultural Foundation in Barbados is when he was the dance manager there. So I'm excited to again be in conversation. And actually, it's not a very popular dance form in Toronto and in Canada. So
Mm.
the Canadian space is a joy for me.
So Kevin, I don't want to end unless I tell people that if you feel led to support the work that Kevin is doing, Cachet Dance is a nonprofit. and it depends on funding. So I am encouraging you, reach out to him, go on the website, go somewhere and put a little something. Every little make a muckle.
Every mickle make a
Little make a muckle. And so I'm encouraging you who are listening, if you learn something from Kevin, I know his capacity is full, but if you can get Kevin to come into a conference or a school to share this level of wisdom, if you can get him, I would
yeah.
encourage it very, very, very much because you will learn what we did in this last 50 odd minutes, almost 60 minutes, is just a taste of the wisdom that this man carries and brings to the world. So, Kevin, it's been a joy. I have been so wanting you to come on here. I hope you'll come back so we
Any,
can go into something else. We're going to talk about cloth next time.
anytime. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And so thank you so much, my brother. It's just peace and blessings continue with you.
And thank you for the platform and the opportunity to you and your organization. It means the world. And I need to do more of these. So, of course, anytime, I'm here for it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care.
Beloved, stay connected with us by clicking the subscribe button and turning on your notifications.